And that does it. Strike three.
U.S. has a WBC title.
They've never faced each other. The best against the best. Trout strikes out swinging. Ohtani in Japan.
The World Baseball Classic isn't a three-team tournament anymore, and almost nobody seems to realize what that actually means. Because heading into 2026, something feels off. Not chaotic, not random. Inevitable. We're watching the biggest global talent explosion baseball has ever seen. MLB starters aren't coming from just a few countries anymore. Entire domestic leagues are now producing players who can flip games and tournaments by themselves. And if you think this is still just about the US, Japan, and the DR, you haven't been paying close enough attention. The warning signs are everywhere. And that's the scary truth about the World Baseball Classic that no one is noticing. If you asked almost any baseball fan to name the countries that matter in the WBC, the answers would come instantly, almost automatically. Japan, the United States, the Dominican Republic. That trio has dominated the way people think about the WBC since the tournament began. And for a long time, that assumption made complete sense. Japan in particular has been the constant, the standard, the measuring stick. They've reached more finals than anyone else. They've won the WBC 3 times, more than any other nation. Their overall record is the best in tournament history. And more importantly, they're the only country that has never truly fallen out of contention. Japan doesn't just show up, they arrive prepared. Their baseball culture is built on repetition, fundamentals, and depth. Generations of elite pitching development, relentless attention to detail. A system designed to produce complete players, not just stars. And by 2017, that system produced something the baseball world had never seen before. Shohei Ohtani. A player so complete that he bent the sport's expectations of what a baseball player could even be. An elite hitter, an ace-level pitcher, an MVP, a global face of the game. When Ohtani took the mound to close out the 2023 World Baseball Classic final, it almost felt inevitable. Be honest, where were you when Ohtani struck out Mike Trout? Comment if you remember watching it live. Because across the field wasn't just any opponent, it was the United States, the deepest talent pool in baseball, a country overflowing with MVPs, Cy Young winners, and All-Stars, but historically not always the most cohesive WBC team. Until everything finally aligned. When Team USA actually took the tournament seriously, their ceiling became obvious. That 2017 title didn't create a dynasty, but it confirmed something important. When the United States locks in, they're just as dangerous as anyone on the planet. And then there's the Dominican Republic. In 2013, they didn't just win, they went undefeated. A perfect run. A roster stacked with MLB stars that steamrolled its way to a championship. By the time the WBC reached its 5th edition in 2023, the hierarchy felt settled. Japan, USA, Dominican Republic. The tournament was never officially a 3-team race, but everyone treated it like one. Fans, media, even the players. Do you agree that this was always a Big 3 tournament? Comment yes or no. That assumption survived for nearly 2 decades, because frankly, it was the truth. Or at least, it was. Until 2023. In 2023, after dismantling Cuba 14-2 in the semifinals, the US walked into the WBC championship game exactly where everyone expected them to be. And waiting for them was Japan. A matchup watched by over 54 million viewers in Japan alone. Mike Trout, the defining superstar of his generation. Shohei Ohtani, the defining player of this one. It felt like destiny. 2 icons, 1 inning, 1 moment. And then Ohtani snapped off a slider down and away. Trout swung and missed. Japan won the World Baseball Classic. Fox Sports commentator Joe Davis summed it up perfectly in real time, quoting Benji Gill, "Baseball's already won." And on the surface, that game seemed to confirm what everyone already believed. Japan and the United States were still the best teams in the world. Everyone else was just fighting for third place. Before we go any further, do you still see the WBC as a Big Three tournament after that final? Comment yes or no. But here's what people completely misunderstand about the WBC. This isn't a league season. There's no time to settle in. You show up ready, or you go home. And in 2023, that reality exposed something far more unsettling. Because the actual games told us something terrifying. The gap was gone. And it started with Mexico, a team nobody took seriously until they made Team USA look mortal. This wasn't some fluky 3-2 upset decided by a bloop single. No, Mexico dropped 11 runs on the US and held the so-called second-best team in the world to just 5. And if that Mexico vs. USA game shocked you, hit subscribe, because this is where the WBC story gets really uncomfortable. A decade ago, that talent gap would have meant a sweep, not a shootout, not a slugfest. And Mexico wasn't done. They fell behind early against Puerto Rico in a knockout game, and still came storming back. Then they went toe-to-toe with Japan, the final boss of the entire tournament, and were literally one inning away from eliminating them. Japan survived, winning 6-5. But make no mistake, that game was a warning. Imagine Japan, the gold standard, barely escaping against what was supposed to be the world's 6th best team. That's when it became clear the teams we still call underdogs aren't underdogs anymore. And it didn't stop with Mexico. Puerto Rico, a country known for energy, passion, and flair, brought something even more dangerous in 2023: upsets. They had already shocked the world in 2013, knocking off both Japan and the United States on their way to the final. But in 2023, they went even further. Puerto Rico threw a perfect game in the WBC. Let that sink in. 4 pitchers, 8 perfect innings, a mercy rule ending. I mean, something that sounds impossible in international baseball actually happened. Then came the group of death: Puerto Rico, Venezuela, and the Dominican Republic, sitting there like a final boss of its own. That Dominican team wasn't just good. They were called the Dream Team. Puerto Rico didn't care. They sent them home. Another Big Three team gone. Another assumption shattered. The World Baseball Classic is no longer a 3-team tournament. The sport has gone global, like for real this time. And once the rest of the world catches up in talent, the usual favorites can't afford to sit back anymore. Because if you think 2023 was just a crazy tournament, wait until you see what's happening underneath the surface. The reason this shift is happening is even scarier than the results themselves. You might look back at 2023 and say, okay, wild tournament. Upsets happen. That's the lazy explanation. Because what you watched in 2023 wasn't luck. It was the visible result of something that's been building quietly for years. And the reason it's terrifying is simple. Baseball talent is no longer concentrated in 3 places. It's everywhere now. Not in theory, in real roster-breaking reality. For most of World Baseball Classic history, the so-called non-traditional countries always ran into the same wall. They had hitters, but no pitching. Or they had heart, but no depth. So the script was pretty predictable. They'd hang around for 5 or 6 innings, maybe even lead early. Then the bullpen door would open, and the game would end. That used to be the WBC formula. Not anymore. Because now these so-called underdogs are bringing something the Big Three used to keep for themselves: Major League depth. Not 1 or 2 stars. Entire lineups. Lineups filled with players who can walk into real MLB clubhouses and be first options, or at worst, high-leverage contributors. And just as important, they're not all coming from MLB. They're coming from homegrown systems that are finally mature enough to compete. Take Mexico. That 30-man roster wasn't built on borrowed stars alone. It was packed with homegrown players like Joey Meneses, Arubio Armenta, Manny Barreda, guys who were developed inside Mexico's own baseball ecosystem. And those players didn't look overwhelmed. They stepped into a pool game against the deepest talent pool on earth and made them look like the ones scrambling for answers. Then there's Venezuela. On paper, they definitely didn't scream tournament favorite, but they topped a pool that included both Puerto Rico and the Dominican Republic. And when they ran into Team USA in the quarterfinals, they had them staring straight at elimination. That game perfectly captured what the WBC has become. Some of these countries have something Team USA will never fully have: continuity. Team USA will always be the most talented roster on paper, but talent isn't chemistry. Some of these nations have domestic league cores that grew up playing the same style of baseball together year after year. They don't need time to become a team. They arrive as one. So while the United States and Japan are trying to compress super teams into a 2-week window, other countries are already operating like machines. And that's why the WBC is no longer so predictable. Okay, quick roll call. Which country do you think will shock the world in 2026? Drop the country in the comments. Because the next WBC isn't gonna feel like the last ones. It's gonna feel different. And for the old favorites, that's the nightmare. So here we are, staring straight at the next WBC, and it's shaping up to be the most dangerous one yet. Not because the favorites got weaker, but because everyone else caught up. Too many countries now have real pitching. Too many lineups now feature legitimate MLB caliber bats. Too many teams walk into the tournament genuinely believing they can win. And once that belief exists, the WBC stops being predictable. It stops being safe. It becomes chaos. Because this isn't a phase. It's not a one-off tournament. It's the new reality of global baseball. And if this breakdown gave you a new perspective on the WBC, hit the like button. It genuinely helps this channel grow and tells YouTube this is the kind of baseball content you want more of. And if you want to stay ahead of what's coming next, make sure you're subscribed to Baseball Unleashed. Because heading into 2026, this is where the best MLB and global baseball breakdowns will live. No surface level takes, no headlines, only analysis. Just the real story shaping the future of the game. Because if the World Baseball Classic feels scary now, just wait until you see what's coming next.